"I'm done shooting you now." Trump explained that he agreed to the ceasefire because, quote, "We have already met and exceeded all military objectives." It's true, this war reached all of its objectives. We had a meeting that lasted 21 hours. We understand this situation better than anybody, and Iran's in very bad shape. And just so you understand, Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. The night Colbert held up the mirror, and Trump couldn't stand what he saw. There are moments in television that do not just entertain you. They reach through the screen and shake you awake. Moments that slice clean through the noise, through the spin, through the carefully constructed image that powerful people pour millions of dollars and thousands of hours into building around themselves like armor. Moments where one man standing behind a wooden desk, holding nothing but the truth in his hand, manages to do what courts and cameras and congressional hearings have struggled to accomplish for years. The night Stephen Colbert looked straight into that camera, laid the evidence flat on the table, and refused to flinch. That was one of those moments. And if you were watching that night, you felt it hit somewhere deep in your chest before your brain even caught up with what your eyes were seeing. The Navy's gone. The Air Force is gone. All anti-aircraft is gone. The leaders are gone. The whole place is gone. So, we'll see how it turns out. Colbert walked out onto that stage the way he always does. Steady stride, shoulders square. That particular glint in his eye, the one his regular audience knows well. The glint that says tonight is not a throwaway night. Tonight, he has something real loaded in the chamber. Not a recycled headline wrapped in a smirk. Not a quick jab and a pivot to the next segment. Something that took preparation, documentation, and the kind of nerve that most people working in American television simply do not carry anymore. He set his notes down on the desk, looked out at the crowd, let the room settle into quiet, and then, without any preamble, without any build-up, he said it flat and plain. The President of the United States told the world today that his father was born in Germany. My father is German, right? He paused. Let the words hang in the air like smoke. Let the audience sit with them for a beat. 2 beats. 3. Then he reached beneath his desk, slow and deliberate, and placed a single sheet of paper in front of the camera. And what was printed on that paper stopped the room dead. Frederick Christ Trump, born in the Bronx, New York, October 11th, 1905. I would say pretty much from the beginning, Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here. I could go out. Not Germany, not West Germany, not a small town near the German border, not anywhere within 1,000 miles of Germany. The Bronx, New York City, the United States of America. A fact that had been sitting in public records, undisturbed, unbothered, untouched for over 100 years, available to any human being with a library card or 5 seconds on the internet, confirmed in birth certificates, confirmed in newspaper archives, confirmed in published obituaries, confirmed in official government documents stretching back more than a century. The fact was not new. The fact had never been hidden. The fact had never gone anywhere. It had been sitting there, patient and perfectly still, every single time the claim was made. And the claim had been made many, many times. Colbert did not shout. He did not pace the stage. He did not perform outrage or manufacture indignation for the cameras the way so many television hosts have learned to do because it drives engagement. He simply stood there, the document in his hand, his voice calm and level. And he let the truth do what truth does when you finally stop running from it and hold it still long enough for every eye in the room to land on it clearly. Says that Trump, quote, knew about the girls, that prompted Republicans to accuse Democrats of cherry-picking. Let's pause there for a second. Guys, I'm gonna say for this one, maybe go with a different fruit. That's just my advice. And this is for you now. He spoke carefully, measured every word. He said, this is not a complicated matter. This is not a question of opinion, not a matter of interpretation, not something that shifts depending on which political lens you look through. This is a birth certificate. It has a name printed on it. It has a date stamped on it. It has a city written on it. Then he lifted the paper one more time, held it directly in front of the lens so every viewer at home could read it with their own eyes. Bronx, New York, October 11th, 1905. The audience absorbed it in silence. And that silence was louder than any standing ovation could have been. It pressed against the walls of the studio like something solid. But what transformed the moment from a simple correction into something far more devastating was what came next. Colbert did not stop at one document. He reached beneath the desk again. And this time, he brought up a stack. Multiple pages, multiple years, a carefully assembled record of interviews, clips, recorded exchanges where the exact same claim had been made, and then corrected, calmly, politely, clearly, and each time the correction had been acknowledged in the moment. A nod, a brief pause, a half-second where the truth seemed to register. And then, the next time a camera appeared, the claim came back, unchanged, unedited, as if the correction had never existed at all. That pattern, laid out in sequence, page after page, was impossible to look away from. This was not confusion. This was not a memory lapse. This was repetition. Deliberate, systematic, consistent repetition of something that had been corrected multiple times and chosen to be repeated anyway. Colbert spread the pages across his desk like a prosecutor laying out exhibits in front of a jury. Each one a timestamp, each one a reminder, each one a quiet, undeniable piece of proof that the truth had been offered again and again and again, and each time it had been received, acknowledged, and then brushed aside like dust on a sleeve. Then he looked up from the desk. His eyes found the camera, and he said something that shifted the gravity of the entire room. At some point, he said, "This stops being about getting something wrong. It becomes about refusing to get it right." The audience did not laugh. They did not clap. They sat perfectly still, processing the weight of that sentence, because it did not need decoration. It did not need a punchline chasing after it. It stood on its own the way a stone stands on the ground, heavy, unmovable, and perfectly clear. Then came the contrast, and this was the stroke that made everything sharper than a blade. Colbert reminded the audience of the public image that had been constructed over years, piece by piece, brick by brick. The claims of perfect memory, the declarations of extraordinary intelligence, the constant, relentless insistence on precision, on brilliance, on being better informed than every expert in every room. The boasts about knowing more than the generals, more than the scientists, more than the historians, the carefully maintained portrait of a man who never gets it wrong. And then Colbert placed that towering image next to the simplest possible fact. A birthplace, a city, a single line on a single document that had not changed in over 100 years. The contrast did all the work by itself. No exaggeration was needed, no dramatic music, no theatrical pauses. The gap between the claim and the reality was so wide that the audience could feel the wind blowing through it. Then Colbert reached for one more piece of paper, older, yellowed, from a different generation entirely, the birth record of Trump's grandfather. Born in Germany, he held both documents side by side, lifting them gently, letting the audience see the difference without saying a single word at first. Two pieces of paper, two names, two birthplaces, one German, one American. He let the silence do its work for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he explained it simply. The German connection was real. It existed. It was documented. But it was not where the claim had been placing it. One generation off. A shift that might seem small on the surface. A grandfather instead of a father. But in context, it meant everything, because it revealed that the story was not rooted in fact. It had been shaped, adjusted, moved around like furniture in a room until it fit a version of reality that sounded better than the truth. That was the moment the room fully understood what it was witnessing. Not a slip, not a harmless mistake, not a joke, a pattern, a rewriting, a carefully maintained version of history that depended on repetition more than accuracy. And once that realization landed, once it settled into the bones of every person sitting in that studio, it changed how everything else sounded. Every past claim suddenly carried a question mark. Every future statement arrived pre-weighted with doubt. The ground shifted beneath the words, and nothing that had been built on top of that ground felt quite as stable as it had 5 minutes before. Colbert did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The facts were doing all the heavy lifting. He simply looked into the camera one final time and spoke slowly, deliberately, the way a person speaks when they know that the truth does not need to be defended because it cannot be defeated. Facts are patient, he said. They do not change because someone repeats something louder. They do not move because someone prefers a different version. They stay exactly where they have always been. He let that sit, let it breathe in the silence. Then he gestured one last time toward the document resting on his desk. The audience rose, not in a sudden burst, not in a rush, gradually, one section at a time, as the realization spread through the room like warmth from a fire. This was not just comedy, it was not just commentary, it was something simpler and heavier at the same time. A moment where the noise stopped and something solid took its place. No spin, no performance, just a fact, held still long enough for every person in the room to see it clearly and understand what it meant. The truth had always been there. Sitting in the public record, printed in black ink on official paper, waiting with the particular patience that facts possess. The patience of things that do not need to fight for their survival because they simply are what they are. And no denial, however forceful, however loud, however many times it is repeated with absolute confidence, can make them otherwise. Colbert had simply picked it up, held it to the light, and refused to put it back down. And in doing so, he had accomplished something that no rally, no press conference, no carefully staged media appearance, and no midnight post on any platform could undo. He had made the truth impossible to look away from. Bronx, New York, October 11th, 1905. Simple, clear, permanent, and absolutely, completely, unalterably true.